Hey y'all, it's Molly with Minnie Acres, and today I want to talk to you about homeschooling. I have 10 real tips for you from a previously burned out homeschool mom who I'd like to say now I'm pretty seasoned. So a little bit about our homeschool story. My older two children were in public school. My husband and I both graduated from the same K through 12 school here in our small town, and we always had envisioned, that our kids would go to the same school that we went to and grow up with their same group of friends and have the same teachers and the same experiences. And so we had a little bit of a living in this small town bubble, hometown feeling. There goes the school bus. This hometown feeling of what school would be like for our kids, and really just hadn't ever considered homeschooling. Nobody in my family homeschooled. I really didn't have any friends. Actually, I don't think I had any friends that homeschooled. And now the cat has joined us. Why? Why are you so obsessed with me? Yesterday I walked away for 5 minutes and he ripped the escape button off of my laptop. So things seemed to be going okay. When our kids were in school, they both had the same kindergarten teacher, the same first grade teacher, and so that was kind of sweet. I did a lot of volunteering. That was something that was really important to me, was that even though my kids were going to public school, I was going to stay involved. So I still was working as a nurse nights and weekends, like 2 or 3 nights a week, but I also made sure to volunteer at the school at least a couple of days a week. And being that included in the day-to-day of what was going on in their classrooms, it helped my kids, because the teachers knew that I was there, I was watching, that I was super involved in what was going on. But another thing is, I also was around to hear the teachers complaining about things. Here he comes. That's my water. When my oldest was in 4th grade, he had said he really wanted to be homeschooled. He didn't want to go to middle school because he didn't want to do the lockers and changing classes and all of that stuff. And I was thinking, that's weird, because generally that's the part of school where you start to feel some independence and start to be like feel comfortable and confident. But then at the same time, I had miserable homeschool experiences. So yeah, why was I doubting anything he was saying to me? But so as he's coming to me and he's saying, I don't want to be homeschooled for middle school, I was also hearing a lot of complaints coming from the teachers because there were constant cutbacks. I don't know how it is in other countries, but here in the US, can you stop shaking things? Here in the US, it's like a constant battle to have funding for education. And so there's always cutbacks, and there would always be a push to have too many children per classroom. That is not yours. Where was I? So I was hearing the teachers complaining about all the changes that were constantly coming up. And in the upcoming year, the plans were they were going to totally take the elementary classes and divide them up to where instead of having one teacher, you were going to have one teacher that taught all of the different, that taught only math for like 4th and 5th grade, one teacher that taught only English for 4th and 5th grade. And the teachers were not happy about this. So I was listening to this turmoil and I was thinking, how is this going to affect my children specifically? But then also Ethan was asking to be homeschooled. So basically I was like, well, if we're going to do this, we're going to start this following year. I'm not going to have you go through 5th grade and then homeschool the following year. Like if we're going to homeschool, we're going to do it, this year. So I spent the summer researching. At that point, I knew 2 people who homeschooled. One was a fellow nurse that I worked with, and one was our neighbor. He's always with me. One was our neighbor, and so I grilled them. Actually, I had 2 neighbors. I grilled them about like curriculums and all that kind of stuff. And thankfully, I actually wound up finding, through Yahoo groups of all things, a group of ladies that met once a month to discuss Charlotte Mason. I'll get into that a little bit more because this video is not about my specific choices for curriculum or philosophies and stuff like that, but I'm just giving you the gist of our story. Can you get comfy? So I spent the summer researching and pulled them out of school, and we started schooling the following year when my older two were in 5th and 3rd grade. So what I want to share specifically is the advice that I would give to myself if I were starting over again, advice that I would give to you if you are pulling your kids out of public school to homeschool, if you are a newer homeschooler, maybe your kids are really young and you're still just trying to get your foundation. If you're considering pulling your kids out mid-semester, there's a lot of kids that actually start homeschooling like after the Christmas break. Or maybe even if you're a seasoned homeschooler, but you also just still have those feelings of doubt. We doubt ourselves a lot as moms anyway, but having those feelings of doubt of like, am I making the right decision? Maybe am I teaching my kids what they need? Am I good enough? All of the things that might be swirling around in your head. I just want to unpack that a little and give you some advice and just share a little bit of what I hope sounds like wisdom. So yeah, let's get into it. Where is he? Oh, here he comes. Okay, first thing. So if you are pulling your kids out of public school, even if they finished a grade and you know that you're going to homeschool and you've had the summer break before you're getting started, and now it's like August or September and your county has their date that they're starting school back, and you're thinking, okay, here we go, we are starting can you stop? We are starting homeschooling right now. I highly, 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 highly advise this. No matter what grades your kids are in, take time to decompress. This was some advice that I read and I was like, yeah, okay, that doesn't really apply to me. It's so applied and we should have taken this advice. Hands down, most important advice that we should have taken from day one. The cat is licking my phone. See that face? That's the cutest little face. You can probably find articles about this on Google that gives a lot more information about what it means to decompress. But decompressing from public school means not having your days look like public school. It means taking time away from books and tests and worksheets and all the things that are really stressful about public school, the strict schedule and timetable. So what I would have done if I had known then what I know now, we would have taken more field trips. We would have sat around reading books and having story time. We would have baked cookies and what else? We would have created some traditions in our family around our days and the times and the seasons, and making more time with my husband, on his days off and in the afternoons. I would have done a lot more intentionally to set a foundation for our family as an atmosphere for learning and making it a pleasure, something to look forward to, and making it something that, where we were enjoying ourselves and not feeling like we were trading one stressful situation for another stressful situation. Just now we got to do it in our pajamas. Along that same line, my second piece of advice is try not to recreate public school at home. So that might mean not setting up a desk, not setting a schedule that feels rigid and where you feel like you're behind if you are off by 15 minutes. What is hard to wrap your mind around is that we can learn at any time. It's not just between 7 and 3, Monday through Friday. School happens with life. And that's one of the biggest freedoms that comes with homeschooling. Life is school. And we get to realize that everything we do can be part of our education, can be part of our children's education. So if you work full-time, which I do, I work full-time now. But my only student that I currently have at home is in middle school and is capable of doing a lot of independent work. I'm able to check in on my breaks, and then we can do things in the afternoon or the evenings, and my husband can also do things in the afternoon or the evenings. So it doesn't have to be we only do school, from this many hours a day, and we have to do it this many hours a day, and we have to cram everything in, and we have to have blocks of time where everything has to be done in that amount of time, or else. That school at home does not have to look like school at school. Number 3, along those same lines, do not get caught up in grades, in grade levels, in keeping up with everyone else, or any of those other mindsets that we can get caught up in. Seriously, think about it. Did your test scores in 3rd grade or even high school or even college actually specifically affect your day-to-day life now? Because in the grand scheme of things, the tests that you take and the passing of the grades, those are all things that are made for a purpose that is related to public school and public school only. It is not in any way reflective of your child and your child's ability. And if you have multiple children, each child is different. So saying that your child is in 4th grade and they make straight A's, that's actually one of the other points that I'm going to make, because those are things that only apply to you being able to give information to outsiders who are asking you about your kids. It really, really... Do you need help? I'll be right back.
Are you too little to get up there by yourself?
Okay, so what was I saying? So especially in the early years, those are things that really and truly, genuinely do not matter. And for some people, I had learned this too about my oldest, grades and tests and things like that were really ingrained in him as a marker for who he was as a person. And if he felt like he was failing, he felt like he was a failure. So to recognize that now, it was like a really big aha for how stepping away from public school, stepping away from the competition that can come with public school, that it's very freeing for you and your children to be able to just learn, to just absorb the information in a way that makes sense for you, in a way that makes sense for them, and to take it in and apply it and actually get to enjoy learning and not be rushed from subject to subject and made to feel like you're a failure if you don't get a good grade on a test. Number 4, along those same lines, each child is different. Each child has their own needs and their own learning abilities, and you want to pay attention to your child, not to public school kids, other homeschool kids, or opinionated family members who want to quiz your kid on how well they think that your kid is doing because you're this weird homeschooler now, and so you can't possibly be as smart as public school kids. Because for the most of the world, even today, even as widespread as homeschooling has become, even as mainstream as homeschooling has become, we're still considered the odd kids out. Be okay with one curriculum not working for every single one of your children, and not trying to force that, the square peg into the round hole. You don't have to do that. As a homeschooler, you have the freedom to explore what each of your children needs and each of their learning styles, and to move at their own pace, and try not to compare them to anybody else. Number 5, it is okay to switch mid-book, mid-semester, mid-year, whatever. Seriously, it is okay to switch gears. It is okay to say, this math book is not working for me and little Timmy. We both hate it. We cry every day. What's the point in torturing ourselves? It's okay to try something new. It's okay. Nobody is going to come to your house and say, you have to finish this book. When you were in public school, you and I, when we were in public school, think about the textbooks that we had. Did we ever finish a textbook? Ever? No, we didn't, because that wasn't the point. The point was the teachers would pull the information out of the textbook that they wanted to use, that we could get to through the year, but it was physically impossible in 180 days of school to get through an entire textbook. So you don't have to either, especially if it's a book that you guys absolutely are not getting along with. If it's making you cry every day, and I use math as an example, but it could be anything. If it is just not hitting well with you, and it's dry, or it's boring, or it's tedious, and you and your child are miserable, put it away. Try something new. It's okay. So number 6 kind of goes along with number 4, talking about each kid having their own abilities and not to compare them to other children. Number 6 is, it is no one's business how well your child is performing. It is no one's business how well your child is performing. When your child is in public school, people don't quiz them, for the most part. I mean, you might have one of those family members that's just a jerk and wants to be like that. But for the most part, children in public school are not quizzed. But if you're in the grocery store in the middle of the day, a little old lady sees you out and is like, why aren't you in school? And you say, I'm homeschooled. And they turn to your kid and say, what's 6 times 9? What'd you make on your state testing scores this year? People do that. It can be scary, and you can feel defensive. I know that I have so many times felt defensive, and I felt like I needed to push my kids to achieve more than their public school peers to sort of prove that they were going to be smarter than everyone else because we homeschooled. Especially because when we pulled our kids out of this K through 12 school that we had attended and everybody knows everybody, we were looked at like we were crazy, because why would you do that? This is a great school. Why would you, what could possibly make you make this choice? So I felt like I needed to defend myself, and I felt like I needed to defend my children, and my children needed to perform a certain way so that we could have that pride of saying, well, now that we homeschool, my 4th grader is now reading on a 12th grade level instead of it felt very, that competitiveness was just always there, and that need to defend our decisions was always there. So my point is it's nobody's business how well your kid is or is not doing as a homeschooler. And I mean, you can be sassy if you want, or you can give an honest answer. You can answer in any way that you want. So I'm not saying don't answer people's questions and be, a brat about it. I'm saying you knowing that it's nobody else's business, it's none of their concern, it doesn't affect them in any way, shape, or form, so it's nobody's business to know that your child is performing on a 3rd grade level in math and reading on a 12th grade level at 2 years old. None of those things are anybody's business. It can be difficult, especially if you've got people-pleasing tendencies like I do, to want approval from other people. But it's very freeing when you can unravel that and unwrap yourself and unwrap your child from trying to please other people. Does that make sense? I hope so. What number are we on? All right, number 7, involve your child in what they want to learn. I'm not necessarily advocating for child-led learning. However, that can be a great style of schooling your kids. There are a lot of homeschool philosophies. We, like I've said, specifically use Charlotte Mason's philosophy. Why do I sit by the window when things distract me, like chickens and vehicles and things outside? It's for the lighting. You can use a blend of ideas. Just do your research and make a decision, but also don't be afraid to switch if it's not working for you. Or one philosophy might work for one child, but it might not work for another child. So be open to all of those ideas. So do your research. I was thankful that I had a full summer to do a lot of research before we started actually homeschooling, because going down the rabbit trails, I'm really thankful that we have the internet, and there were blogs galore and book review sites galore where I was able to really just completely go down the rabbit hole and explore all these options and be completely overwhelmed and absolutely miserable, but still somehow find my way to something that worked well for our family. What's my point? Oh yeah. Involve your child in this if you can. I mean, within reason. So if you were to ask your 5-year-old what do they want to learn about all day, it's going to be dinosaurs, which is great, because you can use dinosaurs as your examples of your ABCs, or counting dinosaurs, or digging for fossils. There are so many things that you can do within each subject that can be wrapped around something that your child is interested in. And when they get older, they can do research on their own for things that they're interested in, but it helps to marry the necessary subjects to the things that they enjoy. Because when you think about public school, how often do they actually get to spend time digging into things they're really interested in? The answer is zero. Zero. The teachers are teaching to a test, and the point is to get to a point where you take the test and you pass the test so that the teacher gets good marks for having taught you to learn to take the test. There's no love of learning in public school. That's a rant for another day. Okay. Number 8. So I'm in the States, and I don't know how the homeschooling laws are in other countries, but I know that in the States, each state has their own laws about homeschooling. Some are more homeschool friendly than others. However, one thing that I highly recommend, whether it's required in your state or not, is that you school under an umbrella school if you want to stay out of the oversight of the county. And this is not like illegal, this is not being shady, and this is a legal way to protect your right as a parent to teach your child what you want to teach them without being told by the county what you have to teach them, if that makes sense. Because there are times where a school board official, a teacher, someone from the county, someone from the state, a nosy neighbor, who knows who, is going to poke their nose in and make some accusations that you're not properly teaching your children when they have no idea what the state laws are, they have no idea what the requirements are, or whether or not you are meeting those requirements or not. For us, using an umbrella school has been the most effective way to be compliant with our state's requirements while also maintaining personal freedom for what we were going to teach our kids. This is one of many places where we need to stand up for our rights. And I highly recommend joining Homeschool Legal Defense. This is not sponsored at all. It would be cool if they wanted to sponsor me, but I don't think they do that. It's like $120 a year, and you have a lawyer and you have experts at your fingertips. If someone were to come to your house because the neighbors saw your kids playing outside in the middle of the day and they called the truancy officer and they came to your house because they wanted to know why your kids weren't in school, you have the ability to call HSLDA and they will tell you exactly what to say and they will stand up for you. And if you've ever seen any of the scary things in the news about homeschoolers, about people having their kids taken away, about people being nosy and making assumptions about homeschooling based on all kinds of ridiculous notions that they had, knowing that you have the ability for such a small price to have that reassurance. We joined HSLDA around the time that we were adopting. For one, we had some really scary run-ins with family members. I felt pretty confident that this family member, just for spite or vengeance, would call and say that my kids were truant and try to get us in trouble, knowing that we homeschooled, because not knowing the laws or anything, this was just a very vindictive person. And then also because we were homeschooling, I really wanted that extra layer of protection over my children, because that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother day. But the fact that we adopted out of foster care and that we adopted children out of our race put a target on our back in so many ways, which are kind of scary now that I think about it. But having the comfort, knowing that if somebody knocks on my door and tries to demand anything of me related to my children being homeschooled, I know how to deal with it, and I know what they do and do not have the right to demand of me. I should have made this like number 1. Absolutely consider using Homeschool Legal Defense, because it helps you sleep better at night. Number 9, trust your instincts. Ask for advice, but trust your instincts. So, when I was asking advice when I was first getting started, like I said, I only knew one nurse who was a homeschooler and then 2 neighbors who homeschooled, and they were of the public school mindset. They basically recreated public school at home. They used very hard curriculum, very demanding curriculum, very boring curriculum. Like their kids were sitting at a desk, doing worksheets, taking tests. It was just bam, bam, bam. There was no creativity. There was no enjoyment. It was not fun. And as I was like gleaning advice from them, none of it sat well with me. None of it felt like a good fit. And I could have caved and bought the expensive curriculum that they were saying you had to use. Like, this is the only one you should use. But thankfully, I did find a mentor. I found 2 wonderful, amazing ladies who had mentored me for years now, that were experts in the Charlotte Mason philosophy. And I highly recommend that you check that out as you're doing research into different philosophies or ways that you might want to bring up your children. But as I was learning so many different ways of education. This was the one that felt the most right in my gut. This was the one that felt natural, it felt child-friendly, it felt well-rounded, and able to mold it to fit my children and their needs. And so my advice to you is to trust your instinct. And also trust your instinct if you feel the need to pivot, because that was something too that I had trouble with. My personality is someone who, if I start something, I'm going to finish it. I'm going to see it through. And realizing that it's okay to pivot. It's okay to drop a book that's not working for you or your kid. It's okay to switch gears, right? So trust your instinct then as well. Ask for advice and still trust your instinct. Number 10, your child is going to be miles ahead of public school, and more importantly, you will be closer bonded than you ever could imagine. In public school, they spend more time getting up, getting in line, and changing classes, and going to PE, and going to recess, and going to lunch, and lining up to go to the library, and lining up here, and having assemblies, and all of these things that interrupt their learning throughout the day. And then they have summer break, and when they come back from summer break, they spend how many months reviewing the information from the year before, because they've already forgotten it, right? So recognizing that public school is not perfect, it is not the standard, it is not the standard. We do not hold public school up to the standard for which we want to educate our children. But seriously, they are not the standard. They are not the gold standard. How many times do you see where public schooling is failing our children, where districts are failing the standards that they set for themselves, and their funding is cut because they're not meeting their standards? And so then it's a vicious cycle. My point is, no matter what you do with your child for their education, they will be miles and miles ahead of public school. The goal of homeschooling is to teach your child to love learning. We are not aiming to get them to 12th grade and graduate them, and then they never crack another book. They're never curious about anything. They just go and get a job and they become an adult. The purpose is to teach them a love of learning, the ability to be a critical thinker, the ability to think for themselves, the ability to investigate things and to desire to learn things. These are the goals of educating your children at home. And the biggest benefit that we got was that we are more bonded as a family than we could have imagined. It never crossed our minds when our kids went to public school, although I missed them dearly, it never crossed our minds that they were going to be spending more hours a day, more hours a week, more years of their life under the influence of other people, adults and children, than they would be spending with us. You know, it didn't occur to us because that's just what you do. That's just what everybody does, right? But realizing once we brought them home and then we added to our family and we were all together all the time, even though, yes, they'll drive you crazy. Having your children with you 24/7 is a sacrifice, but it is the best sacrifice that I ever made. And the bond that I have with my children, because I have their heart, because we spent hours together, because we learned together, because we made memories together, because we made traditions together. We spent that time together, that quality time. And so, yes, there were times where there were tears because we were trying to get through a subject that neither one of us enjoyed, right? But for the most part, there was so much more quality bonding time with my children that I absolutely would do it over again 100%. And I think I can appreciate it more because my kids started out in public school. My older two kids started out in public school. I feel like I can appreciate it a little bit more because I see what was and what is, as opposed to having never known anything different. And the same thing with my kids. They recognize that they are different people, because now if they run into someone that they were in school with in 4th grade and now they're both adults, they see who that person has become versus who they have become. And they see that, like, the competitive nature, the popularity, all of the things that were happening even in elementary school led to what? It didn't actually lead to anything successful, but now it's led to potentially being an adult who has a lot of insecurities because the only times that they felt successful was when they got stickers on a chart in school or when they were voted most popular, right? There is probably a lot that I'm forgetting, but this is definitely a start. And I really hope that I've given you some like real encouragement if you're considering homeschooling or if you've started homeschooling or maybe you're even a seasoned homeschooler, that if you're feeling unsure of yourself, if you're feeling unsure if you're doing right by your kids as a homeschooler, that just for somebody to tell you that you are on the right track, because you are. You know what your child needs better than anyone else in the world because they're your child. So while I didn't give like logistical advice around homeschooling, I hope that I gave some practical advice and some support so that you feel like you can do this. So maybe you feel like there's somebody in your corner, that you're not crazy, and that you can take a deep breath and just keep moving forward, trusting your instincts and doing what's best for you, for your family, and for your kids in your decision to homeschool them. And that was a lot. That was a lot to unpack. So let me know in the comments, is there anything I said that was like, whoa? Or is there anything that I said that you were like, no? Or is there anything that I said that you were like, yes, that's, I totally feel you on that. Like, let me know in the comments, what in the world did you get from this video? Because I feel like I've been rambling forever and I'm really not sure if I said anything that I really meant to say. But it's definitely a start to having a conversation, and these are the things that I really wish someone had said to me. Actually, even if someone had said it to me, I might not have believed them. Because I'm hard-headed and I kind of have to learn the hard way. So hopefully you're not hard-headed like me, and hopefully you'll listen to what I'm saying and it'll help you and it'll make you feel more confident as a homeschooler. I don't know how to end this video. So I'm just gonna say I love y'all and I'll talk to you later. Bye.
If you have a child that was in public school and now you're homeschooled, when they were in public school, were they quizzed by the little lady at the grocery store to ask why you were out in the middle of the day and you said they were homeschooled, and so they asked her to take what, 6 times 9? Did that ever happen?
Wait, did I say that right? I don't think I said that right.